Week 1 is finally here. The longest offseason in all of American professional sports is finally over. Fantasy drafts are complete, storylines have been written, and preseason has been overanalyzed. Real, meaningful football will finally happen this week. So what does that bring with it? Week 1 is historically the craziest week of the season every single year. It's when we realize all over again that last year means nothing, and these teams with different players and coaches can drastically rise or fall from their projected standings. You can throw your power rankings out the window because if history is any indication of what to expect, there's going to be some massive upsets this week. Look back at just last year. In Week 1, the Dallas Cowboys only scored 3 points and lost to the Tampa Bay Bucks, who went on to finish below 500. The Chicago Bears, who finished 3-14, won their season opener against the NFC West champs, the 49ers. And finally, the super hyped Broncos, with their shiny new quarterback, lost to Geno freaking Smith and the Seattle Seahawks, who had just traded away their franchise quarterback for a load of picks. It's my favorite time of the year, not just because it means the weather is going to start getting colder, I can drink my pumpkin beers, and Santa Claus will be coming to town, but every team, other than the Cardinals, have hope that this could be their year. And in one weekend, everyone's opinion on every team is going to completely change. We're so accustomed to having to have a strong opinion on everything. Every quarterback is top 5 or bottom tier. A team is going to be 3-14 or they could run the table. And all it takes is one elite or poor performance in week 1 to completely flip the script. Remember how the Seahawks were throwing their season away and getting ready to tank for Bryce Young because they were starting Geno Smith? Well, he earned MVP votes and they made the playoffs. Before the 2022 season started, the Tampa Bay Bucks were the second favorite to win the Super Bowl, and those same Seahawks were plus 540 to even make the playoffs. So while Vegas knows more than most, they don't know it all. To prove it wasn't a fluke, let's jump back to 2021. The Green Bay Packers were the second favorite to win the Super Bowl, and they were opening up against the New Orleans Saints and their super hot and cold quarterback in Jameis Winston. The Packers should have run away with the game, but instead were wiped off the field to the point that Rodgers was pulled out of the game. They lost 38-3. Which of course had everyone overreact to think that the Saints were the real deal and could make a big run. They missed the playoffs. And that Rodgers was over the hill and the Packers were frauds. They won 13 games, won their division, and made the playoffs. Prior to the start of the 2021 season, the Cincinnati Bengals were also long shots to make the playoffs. They were plus 15,000 to win the Super Bowl, and they ended up making it all the way to the big game. All of this to say, it's going to be a fun week. A lot of things are going to happen that none of us are expecting, and the talking heads are going to react immediately to it. So understand, some of it might mean something, some of the results might mean absolutely nothing. All it means is that a team might have gotten off to a slow start, and everyone just needs to Now for the fun part. I'm going to tell you all the crazy things that I think will happen. You can count on 3 things, so I'll predict each one. There's going to be a ridiculous upset, a season-ending injury to a star player, and a player that nobody drafted in their fantasy leagues is going to break out for a massive game and then probably never be heard from again. Let's start with the upset. I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens to lose to the Houston Texans. The Ravens are known for their super long preseason winning streak that just came to an end, but they're also being talked about a lot recently for their big offseason. They gave Lamar Jackson a massive new contract, signed Odell Beckham Jr., and they drafted Zay Flowers to strengthen the wide receiver core. They got rid of their offensive coordinator Greg Roman, so the prediction is that they will have a more pass-heavy offense than in years past. But Lamar didn't play in the preseason. He also missed several games at the end of last year due to injury, and perhaps a little to make sure he doesn't get more seriously hurt and lose out on the big contract he wanted. So this game could be decided by rest versus rust. The Texans played all of their starters for a good amount of snaps in the preseason. They're starting a rookie quarterback who will no doubt make some mistakes, but has a great skill set. They have a brand new head coach who comes from a winning culture in San Francisco and played for the Texans, and will no doubt have his team hyped. To me, it feels like a game where the Ravens could start slow, give up some early points to the Texans, who are heavy underdogs, which would give them more confidence and possibly allow them to hold on long enough to pull out the win. I don't really want to spend much time on the injury conversation because if I'm right, then people will say I jinxed him. And if I'm wrong, then I might get people saying that I was wishing ill on someone. So I'm just going to say my prediction is that a big name quarterback who was traded in the offseason and has a lot of people predicting big things for his new franchise would be my guess for who could be the surprising injury. It would absolutely suck for football and of course his team, but this player has been incredibly durable during his entire career, so hopefully I'm wrong. Lastly is the player that nobody drafted in fantasy who is going to have a monster game. To me, this is even harder to predict than the injury, but it's way more fun to think about. I've got a couple candidates in mind, so let's talk it out. I could stick with the Texans and go with Tank Dell. I'm sure some of you out there took him late in a deep draft, but someone is going to have to catch passes in Houston, and he seems to be the top candidate to get a large share of the targets from Stroud. He's got great athleticism, and rookie wide receivers are always primed for popping off. My other guess is also a rookie wide receiver in Marvin Mims Jr. He's the second-round rookie wideout in Denver who I think stands to gain the most with all the injuries in the receiver room. Judy is still questionable for week 1, and with Patrick and Hamler already gone for the year, I think Mims is the type of player that could step up, especially in week 1 before there's a ton of film on him and while Courtland Sutton is garnering extra attention. In New Orleans, under Sean Payton, he always had a top-tier wide receiver, but a second guy was always present to capitalize on the extra space provided. I think Mims could be that guy here. Look for him to go over 100 yards and get a touchdown in week 1. So what are your crazy week 1 predictions? Let me know in the comments. If this video gets 100 likes, I'll give away a t-shirt of your favorite team to one commenter who makes a correct prediction. Thanks so much for watching and enjoy the NFL season.